Thanks everybody for checking out my channel. This is Magnus Division, and I got a special video. Obviously, if you're watching it at the time it's posted or recently afterwards, there's been another flare-up in the Gaza conflict. There's recently been 2 Israeli assassinations made, and one was in Iran, and there is a possibility of yet another escalation. The last time that Iran launched those 300 some odd missiles, they were pretty clear about their intentions and what they were going to do. They haven't been this time. Currently, I've been working with the nuclear war simulator on the European theater of World War III for the second week. Part of that's going to include a scenario that I'm showing you right here. So this is going to be the Middle Eastern portion. And so I was working on that, and because I was doing that at this time with all the stuff going on in the news, I thought, well, I should post this up and let everybody kind of see one potential path. Now, mind you, in this scenario, it's part of a larger one where the world, nuclear powers have already went and crossed the threshold. So kind of keep that in mind. Take a look at the kind of scenario here. What's going to happen is things are going to escalate further. Hezbollah is going to make some large amount of saturation missile attacks, start overwhelming the Iron Dome. And please, if you don't know this, the Iron Dome is not an actual dome. There are some people that think that there's some dome surrounding Israel. It's a multi-layered missile defense system. It is not an actual dome. But like any missile defense system, it can be overwhelmed. And usually it's easier or cheaper to build missiles than it is to build interceptors. So Israel is, especially with the United States now in this scenario, again, it's part of a larger one, but they're tied up on a 2-front war that's went nuclear, both in the South China Sea and in Europe. So Israel kind of feels like they're in a lot of ways on their own. So let's take a look here. They're going to strike a very limited strike, low yield. I'd say low yield, right around the size of the atomic bombs in World War II, maybe just slightly larger. They're going to hit southern Lebanon and hit some Hezbollah known positions. And what they're really doing is it's also making it virtually impossible for them to invade from the north in a lot of ways. So not only is it to hit some of their positions, but you're also creating radioactive zones. They're mainly a light infantry army. They do not have, properly sealed tanks that could go through a nuclear wasteland, like a lot of proper fighting forces. I say proper, I mean Hezbollah is considered very... anyways, it gets in another thing. I don't want to get into that part of it. So what is the result? The result of these strikes is going to be that the Arab world basically is going to unite pretty concisively. And of course, that's going to include Iran. When I say Arab world, of course, culturally Iran's separate, but it's going to include Iran. It's going to include Iranian proxy forces as well as Syrian forces. It's going to include even Egypt, not necessarily they're not going to invade, but they are going to be taking a very hardline stance and mobilizing their forces. Israel's feeling at this point that they are surrounded, and so they are going to respond, and basically, they feel their state is completely under siege. So it's going to be 2-pronged. They're going to strike at tactical air bases in Iran. So these are tactical air, Army aviation. They're going to hit the one island. They're not going to hit the one, but they're going to hit that one. They're also going to start hitting locations, some further locations along the Lebanese border. They're going to hit along the Syrian border. And despite the fact that Jordan, and I'm going to have to take this, I'm going to do this other way. Despite the fact that Jordan isn't going to be necessarily a outright aggressor, they're going to hit along the Jordanian border to prevent Syrian and Iranian proxy forces, and actually Iranian regulars as well, from crossing over into Israel from there. They're not going to hit along this more mountainous southern border with Jordan. They're also going to hit along this border here to kind of choke off this point. So you'll see here, utilizing most of their nuclear forces, not entirely all of it, but a large portion of it. They do have a they've never been forthright. It's the world's worst kept secret that they're a nuclear armed nation. Anyways, I'm going to stop gabbing and we're going to take a look at things. So I'm going to do 100 times speed because these mobile launchers are going to take a second. They're going to launch these first initial strikes in southern Lebanon. 1 second. It's not the first or the last time I forget to actually activate the war plan. Okay. Sorry about that. So they've launched. They're now hitting these positions in southern Lebanon. They're also hitting one population center. So we're seeing some follow-on launches here. After the initial launches, I slowed it down to 10 times speed. And then we'll see the major strikes follow on. I have these detonating at 250 meter heights. So it was a choice I had to make. Being that they're lower yield, they'd probably produce a little higher casualties if they were detonated at a lower height. Unfortunately, changing the wind patterns in this sim is very difficult. And so these initial strikes, when I was detonating at a lower height, it was causing a lot of fallout to go into Israel itself. Now, I had to kind of do the best I could because it wouldn't be realistic that they would knowingly send a bunch of fallout, especially early on. It'd be a little bit, after the Arab countries had united and they start crossing the border, it's a little different. But you see here, almost 100,000 Lebanese casualties, 99,047. And that's going to be primarily there in southern Lebanon and then one city. So the follow-on attack, I have it set to take place 120 minutes on. Start at 6 a.m. August 14th. So I'm going to run it to 1,000 speed to get it a little closer to 8 a.m. Okay. Now I've got it back set to and we're going to see the subs are launching, the mobile launchers are launching. Slow it down a little bit there. You're seeing strikes all along the border, and you're going to see these ones going into Iran. So again, for anybody watching the video, if you're not familiar with the geographical layout of the area, Israel and Iran have a very large landmass in between them. They have Jordan and Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. This is Iran over here. Now, I'm sure most of my viewers are very familiar with this already, so I'm not trying to talk down to anybody, but there are going to be some people that may not be as intimately familiar with the geographical layout. That's why a lot of this is done through proxy, airstrikes, and other means. The idea of their main armies attacking one another is virtually impossible over this landscape. And Iran's very mountainous, very tough. It would be a much different conflict if United States and Iran were to go to war than, say, Iraq. We still have some landing here. Let's take a look at this one. Okay. I'm going to go forward in time just slightly to make sure everything has landed. Okay. So look at casualties here. 1.6 million in Syria, 1.4 million in Iran, 380,000 in Jordan, 164,000 in Lebanon. There's 3.8 million overall. I do want to take a look at a couple here. The losses in Egypt are going to be relatively small because it's not a highly populated area that was getting struck, but it's still 145,000. There will be some in Israel as well. No, they didn't. I'm sorry, I'm looking at Italy. Big difference there. Big difference in population, too. 84,000. So, and again, some of that is these strikes here. So, again, these aren't the most heavily populated areas. Some of those Israeli casualties would really be the Gazans. Palestinians in Gaza. I don't know if Gazans the right term or not, but Palestinians in Gaza. And I would say, unfortunately, I'm not sure they would be the most concerned with that versus actual Israeli casualties proper. And there's some here now. Again, in this scenario, they've masked an attack and they're attacking across the border. So a lot of the Israelis would have fled south from here, and this would have been Syrian and Iranian military casualties there. But again, this sim isn't going to be able to differentiate between that stuff. But Israel would have casualties from detonating nuclear bombs this close. There's a certain amount of inevitability about that. They can try to minimize it, but again, you can't wait for weather patterns. If you feel like you're at jeopardy, you're going to have to strike. Their main population centers wouldn't be affected by fallout. So Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa, Nazareth. But there would certainly be areas affected, without a doubt. So again, it comes back to even a limited nuclear exchange like this is capable of producing terrifying casualties. Excuse me, sorry. As most of my videos, I'm usually doing it post-training and drinking a beer, and today's no different. But terrifying amount of casualties in a short amount of time. And, it's heartbreaking enough to see pictures of Palestinian babies, they've been blown up and a parent, father clutching their baby dead. And any Israeli deaths from the other side as well. But the amount of children and, women, elderly that would be getting killed would be exponentially greater. So that's a danger when it comes to this, any of this conflict. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's slowing down at all. In fact, I feel like it's one of the more worrisome areas of a powder keg. So I debated for World War III 3 touch-off points. One was Ukraine conflict. The other one was South China Sea, Taiwan, China, and the United States, but actually involving North Korea as well, because that's kind of what kicks things off a little bit, is North Korea accidentally detonating a nuclear weapon over Japan. But likewise, it leads to tension in the Black Sea between the U.S. Navy and the Russian Navy. But this was also a touch-off point, and any of those 3 are very viable as a touch-off point. And so it's unfortunate, but maybe it was delusional on my part, but it seemed like there was a point in time where it seemed like there was a greater amount of worldwide geopolitical stability, and we're moving kind of in the opposite direction. So Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Not taking a side in the conflict whatsoever. That's a completely separate topic. Feel free to post on and comment below. But I have acquaintances, colleagues on both sides of the fence. We've had conversations privately on it. But again, this is really about education on possible escalation paths and what they would look like. So, thanks everybody. Have a great day.